Yeah, that was Gestapo-like. That's an appropriate comparison. That's exactly what it was like. And when U.S. citizen, she was here legally studying at Tufts University. She had every right to be here. We gave her permission to come. Her family entrusted us. They chose Boston because it's a place of intellectual freedom and respect for cultural freedom. And that trust was apparently misplaced. Ms. Ozturk's a Turkish national on a student visa to attend Tufts University. A video of that incident shows Ozturk walking along a public street in Boston, Massachusetts, my home city, when several masked figures just snatched her phone and backpack, handcuffed her, and hustled her into an unmarked vehicle. What's that sound like? What does that sound like? The Trump administration is putting extremism, cruelty, and chaos over protecting kids and families. Trump isn't focused on getting violent criminals off our streets. He's terrorizing our communities to fulfill deportation quotas with fathers and mothers, grandparents, and kids. And he's trying to strong-arm our city and state leaders to divert their limited resources away from serious public safety threats to instead focus on peaceful, law-abiding families, just as he has diverted federal resources away from combating drug trafficking, violent crime, and terrorism to fuel his lawless mass deportation campaign. Trump isn't trying to protect us. He's trying to divide us. It's us and them. He's trying to divide us. And some people are helping him. He's pitting neighbor against neighbor. But it's not immigrant kids who are about to kick millions of Americans off their health care. It's not them. And he's doing that to pay for a tax break for billionaires. And it's not immigrants who are using the military to silence Americans exercising their right to speak truth to power. These are not the strong and measured actions of the leader of a free country. They are the ruthless maneuvers of an aspiring autocrat hell-bent on consolidating power by any means necessary. This is disgraceful. It should not happen in this country. This is wrong. Deploying the military against a civilian population is wrong. And if we don't step up, this will continue. If we don't step up and declare what is right under our Constitution, then other cities, other citizens will meet this same fate. I'm proud of my Democratic colleagues who are willing to stand up to this thuggery. Trump is a wannabe gangster, and he's showing the world what he's about. And I'm proud. You know, my dad served in the Second World War. He fought the Nazis in Northern Africa. He fought the Nazis on the Italian peninsula. And I think he's looking down right now and he's happy that I'm fighting today's Nazis. He's proud of that. We all should be. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Without objection, Representatives Stauber, Finstead, Fishback, Emmer, Morrison, and Craig of Minnesota, Representatives Miller, LaHood, Davis, and Ramirez of Illinois, Representatives Stefanik, Tenney, Lawler, Goldman, Ocasio-Cortez, Gillen of New York, and Moskowitz of Florida are waived onto the committee for the purpose of questioning the witnesses at today's hearing. Without objection, so ordered. Our witnesses today include the governors of 3 states. We want to welcome you all here. First, we have Tim Walz, governor of the state of Minnesota. He was sworn into office on January 7th, 2019. His second term began on January 2nd, 2023. Governor, welcome back to the House of Representatives. Next, we have J.B. Pritzker, governor of the state of Illinois. He was sworn into office on January 14th, 2019. His second term began on January 9th, 2023. I'm going to yield briefly to my colleague Raj Krishnamurthy for further introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for yielding. In Illinois, we like our pizza deep, our politics lively, and our budgets balanced. The last one used to be a miracle before Governor Pritzker took office. I know firsthand, as the son of immigrants who realized the American dream in Illinois, that immigrants make enormous contributions to our country. Governor Pritzker understands that too. His great-grandfather fled pogroms in Ukraine in 1881 and settled in Chicago to build a better life. That legacy has shaped his lifelong commitment to public service, justice, and opportunity. Before entering public office, Governor Pritzker built a successful business career and became a leading philanthropist, supporting early childhood education and establishing the Illinois Holocaust Museum. Governor Pritzker has delivered historic investments in education, workforce training, infrastructure, technology, and clean energy, all while expanding paid leave, raising the minimum wage, and defending the rights of all Illinoisans. Governor, thank you for your leadership and for joining us today.
Yields back. Next we have Kathy Hochul, Governor of the State of New York. She was sworn into office on August 24th, 2021. Welcome, Governor. And finally, we have Skye Perryman. She is the President and CEO of the Democracy Forward Foundation. Thank you all for joining us. Look forward to your discussion this afternoon. Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please raise their right hand. Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you all solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please let the record show that the witnesses answered in the affirmative. Thank you all, and you may take a seat. We appreciate you being here today and look forward to your testimony. Let me remind the witnesses that we have read your written statement and they will appear in full in the hearing record. Please limit your oral statement to 5 minutes. As a reminder, please press the button on the microphone in front of you so that it's on and the members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you will turn green. After 4 minutes, the light will turn yellow. When the red light comes on, your 5 minutes have expired, and we would ask that you please wrap up. I now recognize Governor Walz for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Lynch, and members of the committee. I'm proud to be here today as the governor of the great state of Minnesota. Wherever you go in this country, people tend to want the same basic things: safe neighborhoods, affordable household goods, meaningful work, good schools. That's what my administration has worked to ensure for our people, and that's what we've delivered. Under our leadership, Minnesota has been ranked the 4th best state to live in, the 2nd best state to raise a family in, and the 3rd best state for jobs. And when it comes to serious crime, Minnesota has hit its lowest level in over 3 decades, and we consistently have lower violent crime rates than the U.S. average. Now, we have a broken immigration system in this country. I think everyone in this room agrees with that. But nothing Minnesota has done to serve its own people stands in the way of the federal government managing border security and policies. While you've convened this hearing to explore the issue of so-called sanctuary states, Minnesota is not even a sanctuary state. Minnesota legislature has passed no such bill making Minnesota a sanctuary state, and I have signed no such law. Minnesota cooperates with federal authorities in a number of ways. When there's a convicted felon in our prisons, we ask about their immigration status and share that information with the Department of Homeland Security. We also cooperate with Homeland Security requests when there's a judicial warrant and when due process has been afforded by our Constitution has been served. But enforcing immigration law is not the role of local and state governments. The fact is, Congress has given federal agencies the authority to enforce immigration laws across this country. That includes Minnesota, and I support them doing so. It's the federal government's job to secure the border. That's why when I was in Congress, I visited the southern border and voted for bills that would have increased funding for Border Patrol, made it easier to hire qualified agents, and deployed advanced technologies to the border. Most importantly, I recognize that securing our border does not mean we sacrifice our constitutional values. Unfortunately, the cruel and misguided policies of this current administration fail to live up to those values. Minnesotans are angry with what they've seen happen to their neighbors. They're angry that the federal government has been snatching people up, putting them in prison, and deporting them without a shred of due process. There's been no notice, no meaningful opportunity to object, and according to the president, no way to get out of these overseas prisons once you end up there. And let's be clear, many of these are law-abiding Americans, people who have been granted asylum or promised protected status. In many cases, it seems these people were reported not based on a criminal behavior, but how they looked or what they've said and being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Even U.S. citizens, like a 4-year-old boy with cancer, sent to Mexico, away from his father, away from the medical needs, to a country he was not born in or had never been to. Americans deserve a sensible, humane, and effective immigration policy that reduces illegal immigration while protecting fundamental rights. Meanwhile, the administration continues to make life worse for hardworking Americans in a lot of other ways, trying to slash Medicaid, Social Security, Medicare, making basic household goods more expensive, and telling people they just need to do more with less. The American people deserve better. You all have the power to legislate, to investigate this administration's abuse and overreach, and protect the American people. And I have to say, I'm disappointed. At a crucial inflection point in our nation's history, Congress is choosing to spend its time trying to cast blames on states like Minnesota that have no hand in creating this crisis. While we may disagree on the best way to maintain border security and public safety, I know we should all be able to agree on a few principles: that everyone in America deserves due process, and that we live in a free country where people should not be locked up for exercising their basic constitutional rights. I hope you'll join me in enforcing accountability to those fundamental ideas, and I look forward to your questions. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
I now recognize Governor Pritzker for his opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, members of the committee, good morning, and thank you for inviting me. As governor of the great state of Illinois, I
En
have
attendant que
seen
Mme Mastin arrive, Mme Monsieur, nous rappelons que branche Pstars FM radio-télévision dans le Pstars Family Support, nous arrivons dans le Congrès américain côté que une présentation, 4 différents states, ils considérés comme cette century qui eux même a pu présenter question devant le Congrès. Red branche Pstars n'a tourné tout à l'heure comme ça.
rule of law. Safe and compassionate immigration policies, I believe, are vital. In fact, my own family owes everything to this country accepting a young refugee named Nicholas Pritzker to its shores over a century ago. My great-grandfather fled the massacre of Jews in Ukraine and arrived in the United States when he was just 10, without a penny to his name. A social service agency provided him a place to live, a public school taught him English, a public university allowed him to pursue a higher education. My father and grandfather both were naval officers and raised their families with a powerful sense of duty to community and patriotism to our country that still lives deep in my generation. Both were successful entrepreneurs. My family story is not unique. Today, Illinois is home to 1.9 million immigrants. Just like my great-grandfather, they are hardworking, raising families, and paying taxes. Our state and our country have been strengthened by people from across the globe seeking freedom, opportunity, and refuge here. Recently, children, pregnant women, and others fled poverty, violence, and persecution, seeking asylum at our border. Some border state politicians chose to treat them as political pawns, busing them to states like mine and dropping them off in the dead of night in the freezing cold. Illinois chose a different path. Faced with a humanitarian crisis, our state made sure children and families did not go hungry or freeze to death. By doing so, we helped to maintain safety and order in Chicago. As governor, one of my responsibilities is to keep the public safe. That is why I expanded our state police, banned assault weapons and ghost guns to take guns out of the hands of criminals, and invested more than ever before in violence prevention. As a result, violent crime is down in Illinois, and Chicago ended 2024 with its lowest homicide rate in 5 years. As I have consistently said, violent criminals have no place on our streets, and if they are undocumented, I want them out of Illinois and out of our country. And as we are reminded in Los Angeles this week, we can all agree that violence of any kind, whomever it is directed at, is unacceptable. People must be held accountable to the law. Illinois follows the law, but let me be clear, we expect the federal government to follow the law too. We will not participate in abuses of power. We will not violate court orders. We will not ignore the Constitution. We will not defy the Supreme Court. We will not take away people's rights to peacefully protest. We also respect, and expect this administration to respect, the traditions and legal precedent that dictate how and when our National Guard and military are deployed. As governor, I've had to make the difficult decision to call the Illinois National Guard into service. I have always done it in partnership with my local governments and law enforcement, and with deep and abiding respect for the sacrifice I was asking of our volunteer armed forces. It's wrong to deploy the National Guard and active duty Marines into an American city over the objection of local law enforcement just to inflame a situation and create a crisis. Just as it's wrong to tear children away from their homes and their mothers and fathers who have spent decades living and working in our communities, raising their families. Besides being a father and husband, the greatest honor of my life has been serving as governor. I believe with my whole heart that Illinois is the best place in the country to live, work, and to raise a family. Illinoisans take seriously their responsibility in upholding the most fundamental values of our nation. Values like kindness, empathy, hard work, and fair play. Our people embody the most American ideal of all, that where your life began matters far less than the dreams you can realize here for yourself and your family. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Chair now recognizes Governor Hochul for her opening statement.
Chairman Comer, Ranking Member Lynch, and members of this committee, as we speak, an American city has been militarized over the objections of their governor. At the outset, I just want to say that this is a flagrant abuse of power and nothing short of an assault on our American values. My views on immigration are simple and direct. Our nation needs secure borders. Our nation needs comprehensive immigration reform from this body. And our state laws dictate that we cooperate with ICE in criminal cases. And our values dictate that we treat all law-abiding people with dignity and respect. The America I believe in is a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants. Abandoning either threatens the very foundation on which this great country was built. You know, for 400 years, New York has prospered because of the hard work of these people, these newcomers. People like my grandfather who fled great poverty in Ireland. Grandma and Grandpa had the same American dream that the immigrants today have. I see it in their eyes. They're not here for handouts. They're not here to take advantage of the situation. They're here to work. They want to contribute, earn their place, raise their families. Yet, every day there's another story of children being ripped from the arms of their mothers, wives separated from their husbands, families arrested while attending legal immigration appointments. You know, not long ago in a small town known as Sackett's Harbor in upstate New York, masked and armed ICE agents stormed into a home before dawn. They abducted a mother, her 3 children, past hell in a detention facility in Texas. I immediately contacted Border Czar Tom Homan and demanded their release. In Jefferson County, more than 60% of the residents voted for Donald Trump. And those people protested in the streets. Local Republican lawmakers, business owners, school leaders all spoke out. Finally, after 2 long weeks, the family was finally returned home. In New York, we understand the difference between going after criminals and traumatizing law-abiding families. Now, some of you will use this hearing to stoke fear. I'm here to talk about the facts. New York has managed an unprecedented immigrant influx because of a broken border. Yet at the same time, our state has become stronger and safer. Today, New York has the lowest homicide rate among the nation's top 10 states. We didn't achieve this with indiscriminate roundups, not by tearing apart innocent families, but by investing $2.6 billion in public safety, engaging in smart, targeted policing, and partnering with law enforcement, federal law enforcement, to apprehend and deport serious criminals. And since I've become governor, we've cooperated in handing over 1,300 convicted criminals to ICE. But what we don't do is civil immigration enforcement. That's the federal government's job. New Yorkers need their state troopers on our highways, seizing guns and drugs. States like mine are doing our part, but we can't be expected to fix the broken immigration system. You know, and the very people who go on cable news and rail about the border are the same ones who torpedo bipartisan legislation each and every time. So here's my message. If you truly care about public safety, if you truly care about the economy, if you truly care about human dignity, then sit down, negotiate, have real reform, secure the border, revive legal pathways, and let people work. At the end of the day, I'll go home and do my job keeping New Yorkers safe. I hope that you will do yours. Thank you.
And I now recognize the Democrat witness, Ms. Perryman, for her opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Acting Ranking Member, for having me here today. And at the outset, let me offer my sincerest condolences to all of you for the passing and your loss of your colleague, Representative Jerry Conley. I'm here today as a lawyer and as the president and CEO of Democracy Forward Foundation, which is a national nonpartisan legal organization that is committed to achieving democracy and a nation that enables all people to thrive. At Democracy Forward, we represent people and communities who make up the very fabric of our nation on a pro bono basis in federal and state courts and regulatory bodies throughout the country. I know this is a hearing focused on immigration, and so I would like to say at the outset and echo the calls for bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform. I will also note that the rhetoric that we have heard the president and his allies use in recent days about immigrants and people in this country is inaccurate, overly politicized, and not solutions-oriented. Fundamentally, Democracy Forward Foundation's work centers on the premise that when the government does its job and delivers for people, our society is stronger. And when our government strays from that purpose, ignoring the Constitution, not achieving and respecting the fidelity of people's rights, our democracy and our people are in danger. Right now, based on the work that we are doing, I am here to say that our American people are in danger and that our democracy is in crisis. I am looking at these United States flags. We need to remember who we are. We right now have a president who has proclaimed without irony that he is a king in a nation that next year will celebrate 250 years since it threw off the reins of monarchy. Since Inauguration Day, the President and his administration have acted beyond the lawful bounds of executive authority. They have usurped the power of this Congress. They have sought to eliminate due process of law. They have ignored court orders, and they are targeting people, civil society organizations, and lawyers. These are anti-democratic actions that present an overall threat to every single American and their well-being and to our values in America. That is why at Democracy Forward Foundation, we have had to go to court to file more than 70 legal actions in federal and state courts and agencies and offices since Inauguration Day to protect the American people's rights. From stopping the president's federal funding freeze, to blocking the decimation of the Department of Education, to having to safeguard due process, to challenging Doge and Elon Musk's attempts to access personal data on behalf of individual Americans, our team is in court every single day on behalf of people of all identities and ideologies, people in red states and blue states, people in small towns, urban areas, and rural communities. Our work at Democracy Forward demonstrates that the United States Constitution is still here, and it is here for all of us. This administration's tactics with regard to immigration enforcement that we have seen, they shock the conscience. They shock the conscience of the vast majority of the American people, including people who do not see eye to eye on how to fix our immigration problem in this country. They have led us to file and have to file litigation on behalf of religious communities to prevent ICE from entering houses of worship. We are litigating against policies that prolong the detention of individual immigrant children without their families. And of course, we are challenging the lack of due process afforded to our clients, men who were disappeared through an unlawful agreement between the government of El Salvador and the United States Department of State. All told, The courts have ruled against the current administration more than 170 times in less than 200 days because of the fast-moving harms and flagrant violations of the law and of our Constitution. And while this is a dire situation, our work demonstrates that the American people are determined to protect their rights. They are determined to use lawful and peaceful means of petitioning their government and, when necessary, of holding their government accountable. People have talked about their families, and last week was June 6th, which is, of course, the anniversary of when American troops landed on the beaches of Normandy in World War II. I, too, am the mother of a 9-year-old boy, and that 9-year-old boy's great-grandfather served in that battle, and many others throughout the European theater. But as I reflected last week, we don't need to be in Normandy to defend our democracy in June of 2025. We need to be here in these halls, doing the work in courts across the country and in our communities. And we do need to remember the essential and historical commitment that our nation made at the end of that war to advance democracy and to ensure that we never turn our backs on people who are fleeing persecution. I so appreciate you inviting me here today to participate in this hearing, and it is with a sincere hope that we can come together that I offer my testimony and comments.
All right, opening statements have concluded. We're now going to begin the questioning portion of today's testimony. And I'm going to begin with Governor Walz. Governor Walz, I thought that maybe your statement referencing ICE as Gestapo was an outlier statement, but now that Mr. Lynch has endorsed it, it appears that it could be some type of Democrat talking point. Governor, do you and other Democrat politicians understand why referencing ICE as Gestapo is offensive? I'm going to explain. The Department of Homeland Security is reporting that ICE agents are now experiencing a 413% rise in assaults. We've seen numerous videos of rioters obstructing and assaulting federal law enforcement after your remarks, including in Los Angeles. So, Governor, do you think that comments like that and rhetoric like that put ICE officers and other law enforcement in greater danger?
Well, thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, any attack on law enforcement is unacceptable, wherever it's at, whether it's state, local.
So you understand, and I've got limited time here. I want to highlight for the governors that real-world impact of the policies that you all continue to defend, even in your opening statements, have on American families. Earlier this year in Governor Pritzker's Illinois, a previously deported illegal alien who had re-entered the country was allegedly drunk driving near the University of Illinois when he struck a car sitting at a red light and then fled the scene. The crash killed 2 young women, including Katie Abraham, whose father and stepmother are here today. This is her poster. Katie had her whole life ahead of her, cut off in an instant. Governor Pritzker, this illegal alien should never have been here. He didn't just flee the scene. He fled the state and was apprehended by federal marshals in Texas using a false name. He now faces criminal charges for reckless homicide, leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death, and driving under the influence resulting in death. And he faces a federal indictment for having a fraudulent permanent resident card, a fraudulent Social Security card, and a fraudulent use of passport. Governor Pritzker, do you agree that this illegal alien who killed Katie should never have been in the United States in the first place?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me express my condolences to the family, and those are terrible circumstances. Let me also say that anyone who commits a crime in the state of Illinois...
I understand, Governor. Should that criminal have been here in the first place? Did he have a right to be in this country illegally?
If the person is a criminal of any sort, then they ought to be...
So that person had a right to be in the United States?
They ought to be given their due process rights, and they ought to be convicted. And
the criminal who entered this country illegally, in your testimony, had a right to be in this country?
No, I'm suggesting to you that when and I have responsibility for the state of Illinois, I can tell you that it's the responsibility of the federal government to manage immigration in this country. And if you're suggesting that the federal government didn't do its job, That is up to you.
Let
to
me ask you
determine.
this, Governor.
I can
but
tell you that in the
do you
state of
believe
Illinois,
do
we
you
follow
believe
the
that
law.
President Biden did his job in securing the border?
I was critical of things that President Biden did. I think I've been very public about that. I wrote a letter to the president telling him that.
Okay. Thank you. Now back to Governor Walz. You were obviously selected by Vice President Harris to be a running mate in 2024. I'm curious, did you ever ask Vice President?
Voilà, madame, monsieur, nous avec vous, dans Pstars FM Radio Télévision, nous avons partagé avec vous information. Eh bien, c'est dans le Pstars Family Support là. Dès nous couper, c'est ça que nous déporté par vous, comme nous avons dit depuis le Parlement républicain du Parlement américain et que nous t'es avec vous pour nous te permettre que vous t'es gagné là nous arriver certaines interventions de 3 gouverneurs plus responsables de fondation qui ont même venu présenter question devant Congrès américain qui invité pour venir faire part de l'idée et ça qui a passé dans cette côté qui a dirigé ou t'a suivre sur réseau pour la Pstars FM Radio Télévision. Nous allons passer à l'autre étape dans l'émission pour là que vous avez en pile de que celui là s'il vous plaît vous faire transition pour nous. Parce que nous, technicien dans fin full là. Non, je parler. Non. Oh, fini transition, non. Fini. Ou pareil. Technicien dans fin full là, tap. Mais je cherche une caméra. Je cherche une caméra maintenant d'eau là pour monde capable boire. On va tap. Tap, tout côté. T'as comme gros ami qui te dit, ils me prient. Comme si là dans le studio à moi, mais à gauche, à droite, ou après aller téléphone, ça qui passe, ou pas que je trompe. Je dis, c'est pas faute, vous t'avez en pile. Donc, ce Jésus-là, lui-même, tout l'a fait travail parce que là, c'est le lit. C'est lui qui est responsable de choses ça. Même venu me dire des paroles et puis me dire. Donc, nous disons que le gouverneur Tim Walz, vous connaissez candidat à la présidence de bon côté, Mme Kamala Harris. Et puis, le gouverneur Ogo qui est dans la cour New York, le gouverneur président qui est dans la cour Chicago. C'est eux-mêmes qui a pu répondre aux questions parlementaires sous question State Sanctuary. C'était qui est considéré comme c'est qui protégeait moun qui pas gagné l'égalité, moun qui pas gagné résidence ou qui pas citoyen américain qui a vivre sur le territoire américain. Donc moun ça yo bénéficié on t'a dit ça te met levé si me capable dire comme ça. Bon côté gouvernement ça yo selon ça reste l'autre gouvernement fédéral là l'estimé ou bien quelques parlementaires yo estimé. Donc c'est comme ça situation li présentée dans moi que n'a parlé avec vous là. Nous disons merci parce que vous choisissez réseau pour la Pstars FM Radio Télévision. Gros discussion parlementaire yo gagné position par yo. Vous connaissez républicain avec démocrate pas région sur dossier ça malgré que yo été formé une commission qui était gain là-dedans 8 parlementaires sénateur particulièrement qui t'a pu défendre un projet de loi présenté par administration fédérale là administration centrale là lorsque le congrès a fini voter et puis pour que yo même yo t'a capable paraphélie de telle sorte que t'a capable venir avec les communes loi pour résoudre problème immigration mais de c'est ça libre l'huile li tomber dans de l'eau papier ali chiré bon samdoulan et t'as coupé papier te dit pour le cahier mouirade là. Transition